what are my thoughts on the NIV translation? What do you say to people who call it the non-inspired version? Some really don't seem to like it. You've got people who are Byzantine, right? And this is translations which flow more so like the KJV, etc., stuff like that. You've got people who are Alexandrian, right? More so lean this way. And they will be more akin to the NIV, the ESV, etc. You generally get people on both sides. You've got people on the Byzantine side, which some people, not all of them, right, which are just hard on the other places, right? KJV only is people. They're like, look, you know what? Like Murray's saying, not inspired version. Then you've got people on the other side, which don't necessarily go to that extreme, but they will talk down about like the KJV and stuff like that. And people who are KJV only will like take huge offense. I did a video probably 2 years ago comparing the KJV to the NIV. Making that video, I think, really helped me in regards to, at least on a basic level, understanding the differences. Because one thing you may not know, I'm talking to everyone here, right? Is obviously in every situation we bring biases into an equation. If you watch any of my videos for a serious amount of time, and if obviously especially live streams where we talk about this, most people know that I really enjoy using the King James version, right? I don't consider myself KJV only, but I really enjoy the translation. And the reason I'm saying that is because when I did that particular video, I thought about it and I said to myself, well, and this is how people need to think, regardless of where you stand, right? It's like the big claim normally is translations like the NIV, they remove verses from the Bible. People on the Alexandrian side say those other manuscripts, they added things to the Bible, right? This is the whole science, the whole industry of textual criticism, trying to go back to looking at the manuscripts and saying, okay, what did the Bible say, right? In its original form, right? And through the manuscript tradition. If you're going to come to that question with unbiased scales, you can't assume that, you know what, these versions added things to the Bible, or these versions, these manuscripts took things away from the Bible, right? If you have an assumption already, you're biased. And basically what I talk about in the video is I basically just say, look, like, people, one person going to come from this side, one person going to come from this side. Where you come on that side, you basically will come to a conclusion. It's interesting. I'm actually reading a book right now which is talking about this heavily. But the reason I put it up is because I feel like that was a good point in time. I tried to make a habit of not saying things, talking about things I don't know. I may have said like years ago, like, you know what, NIV is not inspired version. Or what more so happened is I would be like, I would laugh, for example. I'd more so laugh like if I hear people talking about those kind of things. The book I'm reading right now is talking a lot about, it would be more akin to not liking translations like the NIV and stuff like that. But what I would say personally is, it just comes down to the manuscript tradition, right? People swear by the corrupt manuscripts that were used to translate the NIV. Obviously, from my position, I can't say, you know what, that's true, right? Because I haven't studied those manuscripts in that detail to say, yep, categorically. Vice versa with manuscript tradition, which came down to stuff like the KJV, right? In that deep detail where I would think, you know what, I've studied this enough to confidently say these claims are right, one way or the other. You're talking about English from 400 years ago to English from 20, 30 years ago, right? So ESV is, and stuff like that are easier to read for us today because this is the lingua franca, the language we are more accustomed to speaking today. But I'm at a position where I can say, you know what, it's a non-inspired version. Like, I could say it in jest, and I could say it, but I'm not studied enough to say, you know what, yes, like this is a blanket statement I can say, and I would be foolish, I think, if I'm just going to be honest, if I was saying stuff like that. But that's what I basically say. So people do obviously not like the translation. Christians use different English translations. So what I would say is, I don't know too much about NIV, right? Just being honest, I haven't read it cover to cover. I haven't read much over the years in the NIV. So I couldn't give you too much insights about the NIV, but from what I understand, the translations are like still comparable for the most part. There are places where it's drastically different. There are obviously omissions, etc., and stuff like that. But that's what I'd basically say. I'm more familiar with the ESV out of like more of the modern translations. And it's like I said, it's more so just different language. But if you read both of the translations together, for the most part, you're going to see, okay, you know what, they're coming out basically in a very similar place. You will get to key places where it's like, you know what, some manuscripts don't have this in this and etc. In coming months and weeks, God willing, by God's grace, I'll probably talk more about this as I dive deeper into this particular book, and read other books which come from the opposing view as well. So depending on how you view the evidence, there's really three conclusions I think you can come to. This is proof that verses were added, right? And we know they were added because the evidence shows this. Others will say, no, this is proof that these verses were taken out, and this is the evidence we use to show this. And then you've got people who may be somewhere in the middle, right? Not fully on the left or fully on the right. And they're like, well, I want to look at all of this evidence, and I can't fully know for certain if it was taken out or added, but based on this, the probability of these manuscripts, it really just depends on your view of the manuscript tradition. Like, that's really what it comes down to. As Brandy said, and as many people will say, look, these are taken out. But what if they were never there in the first place, right? That's a question those people on the Alexandrian side, the NIV side, are going to say. If these verses were never there in the first place, then if they were never there, they could never be taken out. What does that mean about the other manuscripts, etc.? So I'm not necessarily like saying this to kind of just defend the other side, like, you know what, or that side to say, yeah, like I'm on their side, but more so just trying to be honest with the things that I've learned over the years and realized over time in regards to trying to really seek for truth and stuff like that. And these are the kind of things they're going to say. So we always have to be ready to kind of think about what someone else is going to say on the opposing side of the argument, because like we can't just argue in our own little worldview and say, you know, this is actually true, but why is it true? And that's what I've realized over recent years. It becomes more difficult when you're not just arguing in your own mindset, in your own belief, and you're looking at other arguments and saying, okay, do I have answers for that argument? If you don't have answers for the argument, then why don't you have answers for the argument? Is it because of their arguments true, etc., and stuff like that? And this applies to manuscript tradition. It applies to other things as well. Thank you so much for watching that video. That was a clip from our weekly live Q&A. We do every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 10 p.m. UK by God's grace. You can watch the whole of that actual live stream right here. And here are 2 other videos on the channel, which may be a blessing to you as well. Thanks and take care, and I'll see you soon. God bless.